Ever since Mom got diagnosed, I've been thinking about what I would say at her memorial. I would lie awake at night while the house hummed and the dog shifted at my feet, composing things in my head. These nights would come whenever there were moments of profound awareness that I was losing her. They would come with a sense of urgency and anxiety, and the only thing I could do to settle my heart was to catalog in my head all the millions of things I would want to convey about her when this day arrived. So you would think that this wouldn't be my first draft. Every time I would compose the words in my head, I would end up with different versions, different memories that I wanted to share. What I realize now that this moment has arrived is that I will never stop composing my tributes to her. I will forever be trying to describe how her hands were always smooth and warm and so very little, and how she hated how her fingernails wouldn't grow long, how her feet were so ticklish that she would likely kick you square in the face if you tried to tickle her, how she always smelled good, so good that when I was little I always stole her flannel nightgowns for my blankies and turned them into capes. I will have to try to describe that smell somehow, because although it still lingers on her abundant supply of cotton turtlenecks, soon it will live only in my memory. But always, in every version, what I most wanted to convey was the importance of her work as a teacher. Even my earliest memories of my mom are interwoven with teaching. I remember hiding under her desk as a kid and the smell of chalk everywhere. I remember how hard it was to navigate the echoing tiled corridors and to find my way to the safety of the poorly carpeted cul-de-sac that was home to the English department. There I would hear the sound of her voice as it rolled out of her classroom. It was always impressive to me that my tiny little mom could be so commanding with her voice. In childhood, I knew the familiar sound of her high heels clicking on the linoleum in the kitchen below my bedroom when I pretended to be asleep at night, but instead would be listening intently for her to get worked up about something in the news or relate something cool her kids shared with her that day. Once even, I listened to her ask my brother to lend her some money because a woman who has an interest in collecting teeth was supposed to be visiting me that evening, and she was horrified to realize that she didn't have any cash on her. She was wonderfully down to earth that way. The coolest thing about my mom was that she never attempted to be cool. She simply was overwhelmingly authentic. So sincere, in fact, that it was disarming. One of her students from her early days at Acton Boxborough would come to our house a lot when I was a kid. Dewey, as we knew him, had long, dark, wavy hair, rocked a leather jacket, and had a husky, mellow voice from too many cigarettes. He was also missing a finger. To this day, I'm not entirely convinced that he lost his finger in a banjo-making accident, as it was later described to me, but rather while doing a magic trick for me in the back seat of our car one afternoon. I loved Dewey. I loved when he would talk about music, and I especially loved when this leather-clad man would bring me pink jewelry boxes with pop-up ballerinas inside. This is what a student was to me. They were family. Just like her teacher colleagues, they were part of our lives, and our lives were always filled with students. There were endless piggyback rides and threats of failing my mom's class if you didn't let me order you around. I got my ears pierced the week after we got back from France with mom's students in the height of the 80s because their long, dangly earrings were so bewitching. In college, one of her students let me babysit for her when I couldn't make ends meet. Another student showed me around Warsaw when I studied abroad. And fittingly, it was in one of her students that I found my first love. Her students cared for our dogs and for our house. They helped us care for her these last few years. And in this last week, her students have wrapped us with love and support. And by students, I mean all of us. For a long time now, I have operated under the belief that I am just one of her many students. Just like all of you, I needed her patience and understanding. She believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. She saw my strengths when I could not see them, and she never let me settle for being less than my best. And I saw her share that with all of her students. I was no exception. I was just the one that apparently required a lot of extracurricular assistance. I don't think anyone could have helped me to be Emma the way my mother did, and I thank the stork who picked her out for me. I know there are many incredible moms out there, but my mom felt tailor-made for me. I don't think anyone else could have taken on my ferocious love and intensity. More than that, I don't think anyone else would have insisted, like she did, that I never apologize for it. In every way, she rose to meet the challenge of being my mother. She let me drag her up mountains and to foreign countries. She survived boyfriends with blue hair, or worse, Republicans. She let me break her heart by going across the country for college, and she picked up and came to Wyoming when she knew we weren't coming back. She never left me in doubt of how much she loved me. It's a daunting thing to have an incredible mother like that, and thank God I never took it for granted. But I realized something this week that had not occurred to me until I began to receive hundreds of emails from her students, colleagues, friends, and neighbors. That I'm not alone. That everyone who knew her was impressed by the example she set as a mother, as a teacher, and as a friend. And if this is to be her last classroom, let me share 10 of her last lessons, so that we, her students, have a shot at teaching others what she so bravely taught us. First, don't be fooled. None of it was effortless. It would be nice to look at my mom and tell yourself that she was gifted with people and that loving came naturally to her, which it did. But let me tell you, she made an active choice to be the person she was. She was determined to have a different kind of relationship with her kids than she had had with her parents. She wanted a different kind of marriage than the marriage she had grown up with. And despite her kind disposition, she was incredibly, incredibly stubborn when it came to her convictions. All the pancakes on snow days, all the many traditions on Christmas, and even the ritual of eating dinner together every night, it was a deliberate choice on her part, though growing up, I never realized how much work it all must have been. She fought for every single day with us right until the end, and she fooled us into thinking it was effortless. Lesson number 2. Approach every person with the understanding that they have something to teach you. She was always saying, "My students showed me the coolest thing today," and her talent at appreciating what others had to share was what made her such a remarkable teacher. Whether it was young children or elderly folks, Mom always took time and took genuine interest. Number 3, never stop putting yourself in environments that challenge you. When you stop learning, that is when you start growing old. Number 4, intellect is not a weapon to prove yourself superior. It is a gift that, when shared, can bring you to greater understanding and empathy for others. Number 5, do not dwell on anger or what could have been. Be grateful for today. Others are not so lucky. Number 6, have your priorities in order. Never let a messy house stop you from having a friend visit. She would travel to the ends of the earth for someone she loved, and when the cancer came, she let go of any pride. She used to hate farting in public. She got over it. Number 7, when evaluating your priorities, your family must always be your number 1. Whatever happens, you get through it together. This one I worked hard to practice these last few years. Whenever I didn't know how to navigate her illness, which was often, when I let her be my North Star, I found my way. Number 8, don't be afraid to love with your whole heart. When people disappoint you, and they will, forgive them. 9, always fight to be your best, and should you stumble, begin the fight again tomorrow. Number 10, above all, always have faith in people. For me, this has been one of the greatest lessons of her death, a lesson I don't think even she knew the full magnitude of until the end. But she taught me to have faith, and because of that, I allowed myself to ask for help on her behalf. It became a tremendously powerful thing. I felt her love come back to us, manifesting in magical ways, in dog sitters and BMWs, in private planes and websites, and warm, welcoming houses in Jackson Hole. All the love came back to her, and it became so powerful that I might find myself taken up in wonder and in awe of it. The last hours of her life felt like the moment in Peter Pan when the audience is asked to clap if they believe in fairies. Everyone has been clapping so hard for us, and the love is so powerful, that the child inside of me almost believed it would be enough to scare away death. None of the lessons she leaves us with are easy. In the last few years, I've often wondered if the reason she was being taken from us was that she was already so very good. Perhaps she was too prepared for what lies beyond. But her dying gave each of us the opportunity to step up and be our best selves for her. And we stumbled and continue to stumble in our effort to live up to her profound belief in us. But I am so very, very proud of my father for being so devoted to her and for teaching me what real love looks like. I am proud of my brother who has spent a lifetime trying to shake us, but who in the end held us together and was my rock. I am proud of myself for beginning to believe that I am strong enough to survive in her absence. Most of all, I'm proud of my mom, for her fortitude and bravery, and for showing us, including herself, just exactly how it's done. She hated being the first or going on alone, but she met her death head on, and I'm sure she was greeted with open arms and wagging tails on the other side. I don't think there is much that you can carry from one world to the next, but I think you carry the love with you. In that regard, thanks to all of you, she was well packed. Without her guidance, we find ourselves scared and at a loss for what to do, but I understand now, at least, that I am in good company, that all of her students are intimidated by living up to the example she set, that I am certainly not alone in that, and that once again my father, my brother, and myself find ourselves to just be a few of the many people she touched in her life. Mom wasn't on top of many trends, and if she didn't read it in the Boston Globe, then it didn't exist in her mind. But she was in the know on at least two things. The first was that she named me Emma. Everyone thought she was mad, but never in my life has there been any question of my being an Emma. My parents knew me from the first. The second was Harry Potter. I distinctly remember the day she brought the first book home after reading the first chapter in Barnes & Noble. She read me the whole thing out loud, the same way she'd read so many things out loud to me. Students' journals, articles in the newspaper, Billy Collins poems. For me, she will always be curled up in her nightgown, hot pink bathrobe wrapped around her, dogs dozing on either side, papers strewn across her lap. This day was no different, and in a strong, deliberate voice, she read me the whole first chapter. She would go on to read the whole book out loud to me, even though I was 16 and too old to be read to. The Harry Potter books are about teachers with their own flaws and young people who are unfairly asked to face impossible odds, and together they strive to be their best in the face of evil. Is it really any wonder that she loved these books so much? In the Harry Potter finale, the villain splinters his soul into pieces, and because of this, he has the power to be resurrected from beyond the grave. I thought about this concept this week when all of you reached out to us. I saw almost 70 years of friendship, love, and memory pass before me like currents in a stream. I realized that each of you holds a part of my mother in your soul, that her spirit is woven into you just as clearly as it is woven into me. There is a power in each of us to resurrect her. Every time we act on the lessons she taught us, when we believe in ourselves, and when we make the hard choice to greet the day and be our best every single day that is given to us. There is absolutely nothing that any of us can do to bring her back, no matter how hard we clap our hands. But I ask you, her students, that you will continue on with me as I fight to bring her forward, into my life and into the lives of others every day from this day on.